VTube Studio is one of, if not the most popular live 2D host app for VTubers. But what you might not know is that there's a whole myriad of different plugins you can use to power up its capabilities and add interest and functionality to your stream and content. Today, I'm going to be going over my top 10 VTube Studio plugins so you can learn what's possible with them and how you can start using them. Starting off with an extremely popular plugin, let's talk about Vbridger. Vbridger is a plugin that uses ARKit blend shapes to make your mouth tracking look much more detailed. It'll run you $10 USD or $30 USD if you want the editor. More on that in a moment. If you're using iOS tracking, your tracking has the capability to use the front-facing camera, which to oversimplify things just basically means it can detect the depth of your face. When applied to face tracking, that can detect things like your cheeks puffing out, your eyes squinting, or your lips pursing. The ARKit standard list of these shapes is over 20 items long, which means a ton of rigging. But Vbridger is really neat because it uses a list of 5 or so standard mouth parameters, which work to combine that long list into something much simpler, both for rigging and for tracking. That means that you can get some of those unique mouth shapes without doing a ton of extra rigging. That information is added as new tracking parameters inside of VTube Studio, and the data is forwarded from your tracking app to Vbridger and then to VTube Studio. If you don't have iOS tracking, by the way, Vbridger does have NVIDIA broadcast webcam support as well, which doesn't use a depth camera or anything, but it does lots of math to assume the depth information necessary for those blend shapes. So yes, you can still use Vbridger if you're a webcam user. Vbridger allows for a ton of customization, including input and output curves, which is really awesome for customizing your tracking to your face and your personal needs. It even has mic support for audio-powered mouth forms. One of the coolest things about it is that it's also got a DLC for a full editor, which allows you to adjust and write custom equations depending on your tracking needs. This isn't a particular coding language, and it's mostly just referred to as math in Vbridger, but it does allow you to customize your parameters quite well. This is particularly important if you want to take advantage of all 25 or whatever ARKit blend shapes instead of just using the classic Vbridger mouth parameters. Just be aware that your model has to be rigged for this, so you can't just use Vbridger without the model being prepared for it in advance. If you're commissioning a model or purchasing a pre-made, you can check with your rig artist or model maker about whether or not your model will have Vbridger support. Speaking of Vbridger though, what a lot of people don't know is Vbridger's lesser-loved cousin, Vitamins. Vitamins, like Vbridger, is an app that primarily focuses on adding new and custom parameters to be used for tracking. Vitamins is completely free to use. In terms of its custom parameter math, it's a little bit different than Vbridger. Vbridger uses math that's kind of similar to an Excel formula format, but Vitamins uses JavaScript. While the entire functionality is not there, you do get access to some neat features, like second-order systems, referencing parameter values with VTube Studio, and adding stuff like date and time. Some of those things are possible with Vbridger, but it's a little bit different than just JavaScript coding, which is easily accessible via online documentation, so you don't have to scavenge the depths of the internet or join a Discord to figure out how this works. You can use this to make interesting conditionals, to trigger expressions, and pull standard and custom parameters from VTube Studio as well. It's a little bit more in depth than Vbridger for that reason, and unfortunately, the downside is that there's very limited support for it. Vitamins is what I personally use at the moment, though I wish there was a little bit more to work with, as the app is never updated and it has a very quiet Discord server. If you're not good with math though, and still want some fun customization in terms of parameters, you should check out the VTS Plugin. This is a lesser known plugin that I personally think is really cool, and I was first exposed to it via the Live 2D Creative Awards a couple years ago. Like with Vitamins, this app has a date and time tracker that will send data to your VTube Studio parameters, so you can have a real-time clock, analog or digital. But it doesn't end there, because the app can also track the sun and moon position, as well as the phases of the moon itself. This opens up your model to having a day/night cycle, or a moon phase tracker. And no, you won't dox yourself doing this, because all you have to do is add longitude and latitude information, so you can pull this info from anywhere in the world. And on top of the time, the sun, and the moon, it's also got weather tracking, so you can add rain, wind, or cloud effects to your model, and they'll update with real weather information using Open Weather Map. Let's talk about a plugin that's great for collabs, and super simple to implement. Fujitech's Reactive plugin for VTube Studio. If you aren't aware, Reactive is a website that you can log into using your Discord, and it hosts any of your sprites or PNG tubers while making them react to your voice input in Discord calls. It's honestly one of the easiest ways to become a PNG tuber if you've been thinking about trying VTubing, by the way. But what makes Reactive really special is the potential for collabs. If you're in a call with several people, they can all show up with their customized sprites. But what's even better than having sprites on screen? Well, having the sprites pinned to your VTuber model. Duh. This obviously isn't a necessary feature, but I think it adds a little bit of oomph to your collabs. It's just 10 times more fun this way. Reactive does need premium to run in VTube Studio like this, but it's super inexpensive at the extremely memeable cost of $4.20 a month. Plus, you also get access to some other features, like these. Next up is a plugin for gamers. Yeah. You heard that right. It's called Nyarupad, and it's increased in popularity a ton in recent years, as many VTubers have custom controller toggles for their model. If you see these, you should know that people are using actual real controller input. So no, it's not just an animation. And that's done using this plugin. Nyarupad is available on itch.io for name your price. Obviously, give money to the developer if you can. The plugin communicates with your connected controller and sends the inputs to VTube Studio, where they're converted to input on your VTuber model parameters. Once again, your model does need to be rigged for this, but you can ask your rigger to add it or purchase an asset and hide your model's arms while using it. I personally just have a screen on BugBot that takes advantage of Nyarupad parameters, but you can also use a simple item overlay on your model like the one that I have up on my Ko-fi page. There are a ton of parameters to prepare and rig for this plugin, so it takes a lot of extra time and prep to set it up in VTube Studio. And it is a little bit obsolete at this point because VTube Studio actually has native controller support. Even then, I still know tons of people that still use Nyarupad, so be sure to check it out. Number 6 on the list is TITS. Except I probably had to censor that. But the acronym stands for Twitch Integrated Throwing System, because it allows you to toss items at your VTuber model. And not only that, your physics will actually react to those items being thrown as well. This is available on itch.io for $15 USD. While the UI can take a moment to get used to, the app itself has options for 2D and 3D assets to be added, and you can customize both the size of the item, the sound that it makes, and where it'll hit you. The parameter control is also customizable, and you can adjust the outline for the model needs, and even swap it to an amorphous blob if your model isn't a humanoid fit. Each trigger is completely customizable, so you can select groups of items, their amount, accuracy, and toss type. There are options for Twitch integration built into the app, so you don't have to worry about setting up anything complicated to make it work with your chat redeems. But if you do want something complicated, the plugin has additional support with Streamerbot and Mix It Up, so you can craft any amount of custom triggers if you want. The next plugin is a particular use case since you need a Stream Deck to use it, and that's the VTube Studio Stream Deck plugin by Kazar. If you don't own a Stream Deck or don't know what it is, it's basically a little or large module that you add to your desk, and it can perform pretty much any function you need at the press of a button. And if you do own one, you definitely need to pick up this plugin. While VTube Studio has hotkey support built into it, when you have as many actions as I do, like movement, effects, reloads, toggles, and so on, you easily run out of keys on your keyboard, or you run the risk of activating something on accident due to key overlap. So having a Stream Deck and using the VTube Studio Stream Deck plugin allows me to control everything about my model using single button presses. The plugin has built-in movement and scale options, an option to swap models, and of course, hotkey triggers. It's also got a reload button in the case that you run a texture swap and start lagging and need a quick refresh. There's also now Virtual Stream Deck, which basically allows you to add a whole second set of keys on your screen at the press of a hotkey. If you have a Stream Deck, you can use this, which means even if you have a tiny little Stream Deck, you can add tons of extra keys for your VTuber model. And that's not to mention that Stream Deck also has a Streamerbot plugin as well, which we'll get to in a bit, but the trio of Stream Deck, Streamerbot, and the VTube Studio Kazar plugin will completely change the way that you manage your VTuber actions. If you don't have a Stream Deck and you've been considering getting one, be sure to use my code at checkout to save you some money. And if you want more information on how Stream Decks work, I'll leave a link in the description to a video where I go over all of that. Number 8 on the list is a plugin that's existed for a bit, but recently got an update and is now in beta testing. It's called VTS Terminal, and in prior updates, it was a plugin that existed to streamline some of VTube's VTube Studio's functions, like easier model positioning, hotkeys, and even exporting data. But after a recent update, VTS Terminal now has a node system. If you're unfamiliar with nodes, it's basically a flowchart of logic that you can use to implement effects and functions on your model, except without the back-end coding part. All you have to do is move around pretty pictures and attach them to each other. VTS Terminal has integrations with other apps like OBS as well, so you can make some super interesting features. Perhaps the coolest part about this is that it uses parameter values, which means that your tracking information can trigger some of this stuff too. The examples Nekomedo gives in the introduction video shows how you can add special effects with your tongue sticking out, or turn on toggles by changing OBS scenes. I've also recently seen it used by Sam to simplify making showcase videos, which is otherwise pretty annoying, or you need to make an entire animation to showcase your models. So yeah, this is pretty cool. I haven't gotten to play around with this as much as I'd like, but this has insane potential as a very potent and even standardized tool, much like how Warudo has become for 3D. If you want to see more of it in action, Zico's did do a full video on it, and I'll link that down below in the description if you want to hear more on that. Whew, and I am tired of speaking. Bugbot, could you take over for me, buddy? Yeah, let's talk about TTS stuff. Specifically, VTS P.O.G. VTS P.O.G is a plugin by Nyarupad, which, if you haven't already gathered, is used for text-to-speech, which is becoming more and more popular for Twitch streams. The reason why this TTS resource is so robust as a live 2D VTuber is that it allows you to use a buddy, such as a second customized model, or even a pre-made that you picked up on VGen. The plugin will link up with VTube Studio and create new voice parameters for your buddy. And that's really awesome, because in VTube Studio, you sadly only get one slot for an audio input, which means that if you're using your mic for your mouth input, you can't also use it for TTS. VTS P.O.G generates these new audio parameters that you can then use in tandem with your mouth tracking. And that means that your buddy gets their own mouth tracking as well. There's support for a number of TTS services, though I would obviously advise avoiding the slop stuff that is included in this app. Overall, this is really easy to set up and use, plus Nyarupad is really active in the VTube Studio server and in the itch.io replies, which means that if you ever have difficulty getting things up and running, there's a great support system and it's regularly updated. And finally, number 10 on the list, which is my personal #1 choice for plugins, Streamerbot. Is this really a surprise for anyone? Streamerbot is exactly what the name implies. It's a bot that helps you stream. It's completely customizable to your needs though, whether you need to work on commands, chat redeems, custom code, opening software, literally anything. And VTube Studio is integrated into the app almost completely. Pretty much every feature inside of VTube Studio is accessible using Streamerbot and VTube Studio's API, so you can trigger hotkeys even without them existing in your expressions hotkey menu. You can change models, reload textures, and since you can set up hotkeys for any of this stuff, you can access all of that here too, including special effects, playing animations, and executing recolors. But accessing all of this isn't the cool part. The cool part is that you can use Streamerbot to trigger this stuff for whatever your heart desires. That includes all of the stuff I mentioned before, like commands, chat redeems, and so on, but also for incredibly specific stuff, like you closing a software, or saying a specific word out loud and executing something via voice command, even just specific words being existent in your chat. And you can also trigger stuff based off of VTube Studio triggers as well, like if you're tracking breaks, for example. Streamerbot can also tint your art mesh as well, although it's not as robust as the built-in art mesh recolor. But if you're in a pinch, it does work great. It wouldn't be a proper Streamerbot showcase without me showing my receipt printer or my slot machine that are both built into Bugbot inside of my live 2D model. These are both run completely using C# code that I wrote in Streamerbot. So if you have any fancy ideas for triggers and interactivity, this is definitely a plugin that you don't want to miss out on. Number 11. And yes, we're adding a bonus because Nyarupad is technically obsolete and I feel bad including that as a main slot. But trust me, it's totally fine to have a number 11 because this app is really cool. It lets you trigger expressions, animations, and audios using your face tracking. It's called Face2Face by Zill, and it can be picked up on Steam for about $15 USD. Of all the plugins on this list, this is definitely one of the easier ones to set up and start using. The app itself has a complete tutorial on how to get set up and running, which none of the other ones do, and you kind of have to end up in someone's Discord or in an online forum in order to understand how it works. So there's slim room for confusion with this app. Basically, you make a rule that takes a specific threshold of facial expression as input, and once held for the chosen amount of time, it will trigger whatever chosen action you want. This is another layer of control for your model and streams, as it lets you control things hands-free. This app has similarities with Streamerbot or VTube Studio Terminal, but the primary difference, in my opinion, is just the ease of use. If you're getting into plugins and you're overwhelmed by how much is happening in Terminal or Streamerbot, Face2Face will take care of you with the tutorial and easy automatic expression detection for making new triggers. Plus, it's on Steam, so it's easy to pick up and easy to install. I highly recommend checking it out. These plugins are not the only ones out there though, there's even more, like the heart rate plugin or Mix It Up bot, which is basically an alternative to Streamerbot. There's a full list on VTube Studio's GitHub, and even more custom ones out there if you can hunt them down or find them in the VTube Studio Discord. Overall, if you're not using plugins, you're missing out. Not just on stream potential and ease of control, but also on fun. So definitely check these out if you haven't already. If there are any other plugins you want me to check out and do a video on, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.